Hi, I'm John from TheDiceStormers. This is part 2 of creating epic gaming moments, and it's focused more on the Games Master this time. We'll be looking at setting up your adventures and what to do when you're GMing on the fly. Cue explosion! I talked a lot about trust between the GM and the players in part 1, and I just want to reiterate that as being the most important factor in creating memorable encounters in your games. If the players trust that the GM is going to look after them and give them a reasonable chance of success, then the players are going to take more risks and create more opportunities for entertaining scenes. Now, on to new info. Crafting epic moments begins with a deliberate look at how you structure your adventures. Look at each encounter that you've created and think about it in terms of opportunities for your players. A lot of the time we craft an encounter to further develop the plot, but what we sometimes forget is putting the fun back into the encounter. Let me give you a scenario for a fantasy setting. 4 adventurers have been moving through a dungeon in search of a magical artifact hidden somewhere in the centre. They step into a room and see 10 goblins sitting around a large bonfire eating the cooked remains of what was once one of the party's horses, which the players lost earlier. The goblins turn and see the party and a fight ensues. Pretty standard stuff. Let me give you another scenario using a similar idea. 4 adventurers have been moving through an underground city which has high towers that serve as pillars holding up a gigantic cavern roof. The towers are connected by a series of swaying bridges held together by ropes and planks. These bridges are the only means of moving from tower to tower. They're looking for a magical artifact which is hidden in the central tower some distance off. As the party are crossing one of the rotting bridges, there's a cry from above and one of the horses that they left at the mouth of the underground city is thrown from above and crashes down onto the bridge, causing the structure to buck and sway. From the windows of the 2 connecting towers, 10 goblins leap down on either side of the bridge, trapping the party. The sounds of fraying rope is heard, but from which side of the bridge? The players aren't sure. The first scenario is very safe. You probably run similar ones in your games without really even thinking about it. The second one, I hope you'll agree, is probably the most interesting one. But why is that? What makes it so much more interesting than the first one? Well, let's break it down. First off, the setting in general has elements which are both familiar to the player, but also different enough that the players feel like they're somewhere they've never been before. It's a little bit like going on holidays to a foreign country. Sometimes you just need to know that at the end of the block, there's a McDonald's restaurant. Players like to feel like they're going somewhere they've never been. But there needs to be elements in that setting which they can hold on to. Too much of the other and the players start to squirm. Too much of the familiar and they start to get bored. So I encourage you to shake up your settings and give them a fresh coat of paint. Another element of the scenario I read out has to do with restricting the players' options. In an empty room with goblins on one side and heroes on the other, a predictable series of events is likely to play out. However, in the second scenario, I put the players on a rickety old bridge with only 2 directions immediately apparent to them. I made the bridge sway by hitting it with a horse, and I dropped goblins on either side to block the players so that they would be forced to make some important decisions and take a few risks. Restricting players forces them to come up with inventive ways to get out of the predicament that they're in. I want to come back to the location you set your encounter in. In the example I gave first, the goblins were eating a cooked horse in a dungeon. There were very few elements that the players could use to turn the scene on its head. There was a bonfire in the room, a cooked horse, but that's about it. In the second scenario, I added in a verticality element. With tall windowed towers, I added a swaying bridge which could potentially break in either the goblins' or the players' favour. I added a dead horse that could be animated, used to cushion the fall if they fell, or perhaps thrown by a strong character. These simple elements won't all be used by the players, but it gives them something to work with that the first encounter was lacking. Something I didn't put into the encounter that I described was another technique which I'll go into in another video. If you ever watch me GM, you'll know that I like to add an element halfway through an encounter which throws a scene on its head and changes the dynamic of how that encounter plays out. But like I said, I'll go into that in another video, but suffice to say, keep it in the back of your mind because it's a great technique to encourage epic gaming moments. Finally, I want to encourage you to roll with your players' ideas. Don't be afraid to say yes to them. Give them a high difficulty if you think it warrants it, but allow them to take risks and reward them if they come up with good ideas. They'll never blame you if you fail, because they knew the odds before they rolled, but they might resent you if they feel restricted. I hope this video has inspired you to create your own epic gaming moments. Let us know what you think in the comments below. The article for this video will be on our website at www.dicestorm.com, or you can go straight to it from the link in the description below. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate your support. I'm John from TheDiceStormers, and I'll see you in the next video.